If you carry a firearm and discharge your weapon in self-defense, you could face hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees and expenses. So carry the protection of CCW Safe, Self-Defense Legal Services membership. Upfront payment of all criminal and civil defense costs with no out-of-pocket for members.
We are back. I'm Chris Evan, the CEO of Survival Dispatch, joined tonight by my good friend Khalid Muhammad from Command 11 in Pakistan, Agent 711. And directly below Agent 711, because 711 is higher than 007, is my good friend Jeff MD, 26-year CIA case officer, author extraordinaire. And directly below me, Clint Eastwood's joining us tonight. Good to see you, Clint. Thank you.
Get off my lawn.
that was a perfect response.
I used to stack gooks like you for sandbags.
Man, are you trying to compete with Khalid to see how fast we can get kicked off a platform?
I'm just quoting a movie. It's a great movie.
Yes, it is.
Now they'll get us with a copyright strike. Thanks, Jeff.
Well, hey, it was a paraphrasing.
There you go. There you go. So anyway, Randy will not be with us tonight. He's still under the weather. Hopefully he'll be back tomorrow night. The topic we're going to be discussing tonight is counterintelligence in the post 9/11 2.0 world. And we're going to focus on things, especially detecting infiltration, but identifying spies, informants, hostile actors hiding within communities. Everybody on the panel, except for myself, has either worked in the intel community or with the intel community in some capacity. It's going to be a really interesting conversation tonight. Before we get into it, we're going to do the conflicted question of the night, conflictedthegame.com. These are 14 card games, all in a post-apocalyptic scenario. 99% of the questions have some element of morality, hence the name Conflicted. Let me get everybody up on stage over here. Looks like we're just missing Clint. Oh, we're missing Khalid as well. All right, S2, it's all you.
All right, so Gordon looks like he's been doing a little bit of introspection here. For those of you that are not with us on a regular basis or are new to the cast tonight, I'm going to explain how this works. I am going to read this question off from the Conflicted Game deck, and we're going to read it off again at the end of the show. Right now, I want you to give it some thought and think about how you feel about this question or what your logical response would be. And at the end of the show, we want to see your answers in the chat. So here we go. Gordon feels that people take their freedom for granted. Do you also feel, in general, that people take their freedom for granted? And why? There we go.
There should be some interesting answers for this one tonight.
Yes, no question. How interesting can it be?
The why part is interesting.
The why part, maybe. Yeah, okay.
I guarantee you that some way, somehow, Agent 711 will tie this into battlefield executions. I'll put money on it right now. If you think I am right, put a 1 in the live chat, whatever platform that you're on, that Khalid will tie BFE to this question. If you don't think he's going to tie BFE to this question, put a 0 in the live chat, whatever platform you're on.
Me, I got a light. Yeah, I got a light.
All right, let's get into the first item on Khalid's SITREP tonight. Khalid, go ahead and run with this one. This is straight up insanity.
I am shocked. I mean, I am beyond shocked at the kind of people that are being elected in the U.S. The lady in the picture there is now a part of the Bangor, Maine City Council. Went to prison for 10 years for manslaughter because someone called her a racist name. And somehow she's qualified for office. I don't get it. I just don't get it anymore.
Probably called her a fat bitch.
So what's the rule on that? When it's technically correct,
it's not slander,
right?
What perception? I guess if you perceive it to be racist, then you can argue that. But Chris, I'm serious. I don't get this anymore. You can be a convicted criminal and you can still win an election. You can be a terrorist and still win an election. You can be affiliated with a terrorist group and still win an election. And I'm just going, where is America headed now?
It's all political theater.
They're mocking you. You know why?
Right.
Because they're running around telling everybody that Trump is a felon, so that they're electing felons to these positions. They're doing it on purpose.
Yeah, but Trump was never convicted of an actual felony.
Try telling that to a liberal.
Well,
that's why you have BFE. I mean, it's very.
There you go.
I'm going to play devil's advocate.
Shannon has told you to start the BFE.
Yeah.
You know what? Is there a purge, Clede? Like, do you have a purge night one night of the year when it's BFE or bust sort of thing, like the movie?
What we try and do is during the month of Ramadan, we try and clean up as much as we can because we're not allowed to eat during the day. So once we fast, we go out hunting and we clean up as much as we possibly can during that month because it's a holy month for us as Muslims. So we figure, that's a great month to send people to hell.
You get hangry. Is that what you're saying? You get hangry?
Oh, yeah. We have to.
Okay, I want to play devil's advocate here. Okay, this woman, having lived in Orlando, she killed a tourist. Can we get the whole story? Because I've been tempted a few times myself.
Especially if you're in Arizona.
Well, yeah, we get it here too. If you equate tourists to snowbirds,
I'm pretty sure what I just heard was Jeff MD endorsing the concept of BFE. I'm pretty sure that's what I heard.
Think it was as well.
All right, so
it's not a
second audience.
It's not a battlefield execution.
It's an condition to be
APE, an amusement park execution.
Well, that's the same thing, just different.
Wait.
Second poll. If you think that Jeff just endorsed BFE, AFE, put a 1 in the live chat. I mean, we're literally down to S2 of me that haven't endorsed it yet tonight, but we'll look after that.
When I was in the U.S., we called them public service executions, where you would take out the guy that was just the absolute pain in the ass for the neighborhood.
Well, it's like the guy who's driving 35 miles an hour in the fast lane on the freeway.
Definitely.
You're doing a
that guy needs to
cut down. That's road rage, man. That's totally different.
Well, not if you pull him over.
Mad, you're just doing it. As a
pull him over.
Let's reel this back in for the next one here because this one's actually serious. Khalid's done a lot of work looking into what's going on in Kazakhstan, north of us here, and it's not good. Khalid, give us the update on this. This is crazy.
We've been watching Canada. We've been watching Canada and Europe very closely for a long time because it's a lot of similarities between the two. What we found is that Canada now has 5 very active, very large ISIS cells. And the senior most commanders of those ISIS cells are serving officers in the Canadian Army.
Well, here's a question for you. How vulnerable is our Department of War to something like this happening?
Well, we've seen it. Like, I mean, we saw it. We saw, a radicalized Muslim shooting up at a military base, but we're not as America is not as vulnerable as Canada is, because I mean, I don't know if you saw the commander in chief of the Canadian military literally started crying and during a press statement saying, "I'm sorry that people were so hurt by being discriminated against and being treated this way," and she had tears rolling down her eyes. I'm like, oh my God. You're the fucking commander in chief of the military and you're crying about this?
Well, the operative word there is she.
Yeah.
I sent that to a couple people that are either active duty or former Canadian military, and they both went off the rails over that. They said they're absolutely disgusted at what's happening.
The interesting part, Chris, though, is the Royal Mounted Police used to be one of the most feared forces in policing because they did not have any rules. They would, if they had to arrest you, they would do it in any way they possibly had to. You have dumbed down the Royal Mounted Police when we're there, just like English police.
the RCMP are just as corrupt as the FBI. So I have a nephew who lives in northern Alberta, and I can't remember exactly what the weather anomaly was. It might have been flooding, something like that, about 10 years ago. And the RCMP, everybody was evac, right? And then the RCMP, while everybody was gone, went to their homes and took all of their guns and then made them prove that they owned the guns afterwards. And if they couldn't prove it, they didn't give them their guns back. They are absolutely corrupt to the core. So, and if I'm not already on their list, now I am now. I'm happy to be on all these lists. Means we're over the target, but crazy stuff for sure. Next one up. This is unreal. Let me play this 54-second video, and then Khalid will speak to it again. He's brought this up before. This is pretty crazy.
In Pakistan, there's a tiny village missing from most maps, yet thousands of bullets are fired here every single day. This isn't a battlefield. It's Dara Adam Khel, the world's largest illegal gun village. 150 years ago...
Whoa. Hold on a second. Illegal? In what sense, Khalid?
Illegal is in there's no serial numbers on those guns. You can have any gun you made, they can never be licensed. But they fire just like any other weapon you'd buy from the market.
So, I mean, is that against the law in Pakistan? Because we can make our own guns here, and we never have to register them. We don't have to have serial numbers on them.
If you're not looking to register it, then it's not illegal. Okay. But if you're like some of the people who are law-abiding in Pakistan that register their weapons, then it's illegal for them.
So are you talking like the TTP? They buy from these guys, they register their guns, and
no, these guys are dealing a lot of cops. A lot of cops buy their weapons from these guys.
Fair enough. All right, let's listen to the rest of this.
British deserter taught locals how to make guns, and that single lesson changed everything. Today, the village runs like a weapons factory, 600 hardware shops, 2,600 workshops, and 50,000 guns made each year. From U.S. rifles to Soviet weapons, they can recreate anything, even from a single photo. With no machines or modern tech, every piece is handmade. A small family workshop builds 20 AKS a month, just $200 each, and you get 300 bullets included. In Dara, the impossible is routine. So tell me, would you dare visit the village of guns?
Oh, hell yeah.
Hell yes.
Yeah,
it's the funnest place you'll ever go to, Chris. I swear, it is the most enjoyable place you will ever go to. I took a friend of mine, a German friend of mine there. He said, I told him the story about, Dara Adam Khel. I said, they can build any weapon you want. He didn't believe me. I said, okay, you've got this this nice revolver. Let's take this there and let's see if they can make it for you. They took it. He took it with us. From Islamabad, it was probably about a 4-hour drive. Okay. We drove up. We spent the day. We ate there, and he showed them the weapon. The guy rolled it around in his hand, looked at it, opened up the barrel, checked it out, said, okay, come back. And he gave him the gun back and said, come back in a week. The guy said, what the fuck? And we went home. A week later, we came back, and he said, can I see your other gun? Had him put the gun on the table. He took that gun and put it underneath the counter and gave him the gun that he had made. Said, go out and fire it. And he went out and fired. And he went, this is my gun. You didn't make my gun for me. This is my gun. And the guy literally pulled the gun out from the counter and said, no, sir, this is your weapon. Check it and make sure if this is your weapon or not. He couldn't even recognize his own gun. That's how well they'd made it.
That's
prices go from about $50 all the way up to about $300. And any weapon, M4, AK, AR, they can build anything you want. And they've got this great skill back that you go and test fire before you take the gun home.
Hold on, listen to us. Do say that again.
I want a saw.
So crazy story. I've touched on it before. I have a friend of mine who's an international arms dealer out of South Florida, does all the ITAR stuff, blah, blah, blah. And he's done some really interesting deals, but he's from El Salvador originally, came to America as a youngin', has been here ever since. And he's married to a girl from Pakistan whose father used to be the minister of defense over there. So he's traveled back and forth to Pakistan numerous times. He sent me screenshots from an app that kind of looked like eBay or something, but it was a Pakistani equivalent a couple years ago. M249 saws, closed bolt, which are much faster cyclic rate than the open bolt, $1,200. And then crazy stuff from there down. Like you could get PVS 14s, pardon me, for $300. I mean, it was just all the stuff that we left in Afghanistan.
The problem is not getting the guns while you're there; it's getting
How
them
we
out.
get it in.
Yeah.
Well, these guys. What I like about these guys, I was living in Karachi at the time, and I asked them. I said, "Listen, I can't fly this with me in the plane." They said, "Okay, here's what you do: give us 50% of the money and give us your address in Karachi, and we'll get it there to you. And when we deliver it, we'll give you you give us the remainder of the money." And they do that anywhere in the world.
Get this into you. I know a guy who does international arms, not the first guy I mentioned, a second guy. And when the Israelis dropped all the Iwi Galils and went to ARs, you could get them for a song and a dance over there. He bought up a shit ton of them. He cut the barrels off of them, shipped them into America as parts guns, reassembled them when he got here, did everything legally, registered them, and turned around and sold them all for $35,000 a piece.
Wow. And then promptly had a visit from the ATF
for a
Galil. He did it all legitimately. He had his SOT, and he's a legit guy. But that's how he got it in the country. Once he got it in the country, it was easy to reassemble and sell.
The Galil is just a glorified AK.
Correct.
Yep.
Which is good for hitting everything around your target.
Yep.
Yeah, but 35 grand.
It's an auto machine guns today. But if you have an SOT and you can legally buy machine guns, it's hard to find anything under 20,000. The average price would be about 35,000 for a full auto now. That's sold for the same price as a regular AR prior to the NFA being rammed down our throats in the 80s. But that's a deep, deep rabbit hole. So let's get into this next one, because this is pretty crazy. So again, it's the Command 11 SITREPS. So these are posts that Khalid has made. This is another in a series of irritant gas attacks on schools in Germany. People are still not paying attention to the threat to Europe. May 11th, 2025, 29 students gassed by an unknown substance. June 5th, 2025, 17 students injured in an irritant gas attack in Munich. June 20th, 2025, 37 students affected by tear gas released in a school hallway in Berlin, Germany. September 15th, 2025, 20 students injured in a tear gas attack sprayed in a school stairwell in Hanau, Germany. Just in, 29 students gassed by unknown substance at a school in Germany. Police currently do not have a suspect. Khalid, what can you add to that?
This is okay. This is it's a test of a delivery method. They've used aerosol. They've used coating in hallways. They've used aerosols in stairwells. They are testing different methods to deliver a gas. That means that you are now getting to the point where they are now getting ready to test chemical and biological weapons. Oof. The irritant gas is a good precursor to understanding how a chemical weapon or a biological weapon is going to react on someone. And the fact that
sorry, go ahead, Clay. I don't mean to interrupt.
The fact that you still don't know what kind of substance was used is another big question for European police. And the interesting part here is that all of these attacks are happening in Germany. The knife attacks all happen in Germany. The gas attacks are all happening in Germany. The car rammings are all happening in Germany. First it was France. Now they've moved to Germany. France, Germany, the UK, Italy. These are the 4 countries we're watching in Europe, because these are the 4 countries that are going to kick off. We know Oslo is also a target, but that's part of the aviation plot, and you've not seen anything in that part of the world yet. But down in the lower part of mainland Europe, you're seeing numerous attacks happen now.
Let me get us over on the other desktop, and I've got to get everybody out here. S2, go ahead with your question or statement. Then, Jeff, I have 2 questions for you.
Yeah, so 2 things on this. Germany is one of the countries who has decided that they're going to start expelling all of the foreign invaders.
Afghans. Yep.
The Afghans. The other thing was, I could swear I saw earlier this week what looked to be like a chlorine gas bomb that was discovered somewhere.
Yep. That was in Munich. Munich.
Explain that type of bomb, S2, just for the people who are not familiar with that.
So you can take Clorox and mix it with like drain cleaner, and the byproduct of it would be chlorine gas. It would be a binary formula that could be set off via chemical timer. That could you could put a chemical timer in there that would eat through. You could take 2 plastic bottles and put them in something that would eat through the plastic, and when those 2 formulas mix, then the resultant is chlorine gas.
Okay, I appreciate you adding that. So, Jeff, I have 2 questions for you. One of them's kind of a gimme, but is there any reason you see why this type of attack could not be deployed in American schools?
No, of course not. I mean, they're testing delivery methods, they're testing response, and like S2 said, you can use Clorox and Drano and make a delayed one. But if you get something that's you get lye and you get Clorox and you put the lye in something that it will eat through eventually, there's your timer.
Yep. So what sort of defensive measures could school security teams implement right now that aren't a heavy lift? And granted, many schools have no security team, but the ones that do, what could they do, Jeff?
Well, you just got to keep people the hell out of the school. And the other one is you got to look at the people who have access to the school, because the perfect person to set this up is a custodian.
Yeah.
He's got access to the entire building. If he's bringing in cleaning products, no one's going to question him about it because it's his freaking job. But if your custodian has, what kind of background checks do they do on these people? Probably nothing, because ideally they don't even have contact with the students. So it's not like they're in a classroom with them.
One more question.
Well, and also with this too, what Jeff's saying, a lot of the school systems here in the United States don't even have custodians that are hired by the school system. They bring in services to clean.
Yeah,
so
contractor.
Yeah.
Yep.
Jeff, one more question before we move on to the next item. What's stopping the bad guys from going on-prem during the night, getting on the roof of the schools, cutting into the HVAC systems, putting canisters on timers, and walking away and let all hell break loose the next morning?
Nothing. Especially if you have a system where they have a lot of duct work and the air conditioners are on the roof, and a lot of places have that. You just put it in there.
Honestly,
put it in there, tape it shut, and go home.
Yeah, I've done a fair bit of consulting in the commercial roofing industry here in Florida. I've never seen a school where the AC units were not on the roof. Now, I'm sure they exist, but they're big units and they're typically on the roof. So let's move on to the next one here.
Just
somebody,
go ahead.
If
you remember in our in our updated threat assessment, we identified these labor class people as being the major threat that you need to look at, because they're the ones who have access to your electronic systems, your HVAC systems. They can set stuff up that will be used much later.
Yeah, well said again. So somebody made a comment, by the way, earlier in the live chat as it was scrolling by, that I appear to be calmed down. Well, that's fixing to change right now with this last part of Khalid's sit rep here. It still astounds us that Muslim countries in the Middle East have banned the Muslim Brotherhood from operating inside their borders, yet the U.S. is still debating on designating them a foreign terror organization. Muslim Brotherhood leaders openly explain how they plan to conquer America and Europe and destroy Western civilization. 57-second video. Here goes my blood pressure.
700 years of our trial to conquer Europe by force failed. They did something wrong, very wrong. They tried for many years to conquer Europe through wars, only wars.
This is the soft Islamic conquest of the West. Basically, what the Islamic and again, I'm an Orthodox Muslim. what we couldn't do in the last, say, 20 years, now the West is doing it for us for free and even paying for it.
Allah permitted them to live off the infidel while they are subduing them. So it had sort of a parasitic type of attitude where they can live off of the host country, where their goal is to eventually eradicate the host culture and supplant it with Islam.
This stuff really pisses me off because some of us saw this coming 30 years ago. This is not new. Khalid, let me get you center stage to speak to this.
Well, here's where my problem is. Trump tried to get Muslim Brotherhood turned into an FTO during his first term. It didn't happen. Now they're trying again, and I don't think it's going to happen again. And I'll tell you why I don't think it's going to happen again. And this is something we just, right before we went on air, someone sent this to me. The US government has asked the European Union to tell them how to draw up guidelines to ban the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood controls Europe. How in the hell are they going to tell the Americans how to draw up guidelines? It's very simple. If you are Muslim Brotherhood, you are banned. If you are Muslim Students Association, you are banned. If you are Islamic Student Society of North America, you are banned. If you are CARE, you are banned. Your accounts, your bank, everything needs to be seized. There are so many experts on Muslim Brotherhood sitting in the US that could guide the State Department through step by step what organizations, what structure, how you need to take these apart. And you're asking the Europeans to tell you how to do it? Europe has already been collapsed by the Muslim Brotherhood. And we still don't understand, when is America going to get serious about this? Do these radicals need to take over the parts of the US before you wake up to it and go, wait a minute, this is something we need to stop?
Well, that's actually leads into my question for Jeff, and then I've got a separate one for us too. But Jeff, in your estimation, why has Muslim Brotherhood not been declared a foreign terrorist organization? What's stopping us from getting over that hump?
Well, you need bipartisan consensus to a certain, to at least a minimal point. And Democrats get too much money and too much support from the Muslim community, and the Muslim community gives too much money and too much support to the Muslim Brotherhood.
Yep.
You're not going to see it, not until, you know, I hate to say, you almost need a terrorist act that is tied to them or something like that, because, you know, people don't do things that are against their self-interest. And the Democrats think, you know, currying favor with the radical Islamic community is in their best interest. They're wrong, but they think it is. I mean, you look at the protests in New York against, you know, at the universities where they were, you know, they basically wouldn't let Jewish students go to school. And, you know, that was blatantly obvious. They didn't do a damn thing about it. Trump had to do something about it.
Yep. Right. So S2, just off the top of your head, are there any specific security vulnerabilities in America that exist because of the Muslim Brotherhood's efforts? You're on mute, S2.
Damn it. This mute button wasn't working. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've seen these radicals in our military. We've had one person that was in there that shot up a barracks. We had another guy that dropped a grenade in one. They're in our government. And some of these people are on committees that they have access to sensitive information that they could just say, I mean, we're looking at what happened with James Comey. James Comey had access to everything, and he's out there talking to some freaking reporter, using him as a some professor at Columbia University using him as a proxy to leak shit to the media. So yeah, is there a problem there? The problem that we have is that they have been allowed to grow unfettered for so many years, that they have so many new tentacles and NGOs that they've created in the United States. A lot of them fly under the radar. And I think one of the things that Rubio is wrestling with right now is trying to locate all of those organizations, because if you allow just one to exist and you ban the rest of them, they'll just start all over again.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And that's actually a perfect lead in to our main topic of the night. So, if memory serves me right, this is episode number 55 out of a 144 episode series that Khalid and I put together. And you can watch any episode by itself in any order. Each of them stand alone on their own. We just have to share one piece of context. Everything in this long war series, which is what we're calling this 144 episodes, is predicated on 9/11 2.0, where we have very credible intelligence telling us that the Islamic Army, which now is the banner that they all fall underneath, whether it's the Taliban, Al Qaeda, TTP, ISIS, all of them fall under that banner, where they attack 10 to 15 tier 2 cities simultaneously. So cities with a population between 100,000 and 500,000. Each of those cities itself will have somewhere between, say, 8 and 12 terrorist cells that have somewhere between 4 and 12 terrorists per cell, attacking one location after another, just like Mumbai in 2008. And the initial attack is bad enough, but then they'll sit and they'll lie in wait for first responders to show up. People will automatically think, phew, thank God I survived the attack. It's not over. The secondary and tertiary attacks will take out even more people. We've been telling people, if you take nothing away from this 144 episode series, but this one thing, that is, if you find yourself on the X in a terrorist attack and you are not killed, get as far away as fast as you can. Do not approach first responders. Many of them will not be first responders. They will be terrorists dressed up as first responders. We've had multiple uniforms stolen from National Guard armories in the past 18 months. We've had multiple break-ins at dry cleaners across the country over the past 2 years, stealing police uniforms and paramedic uniforms. Get as far away as fast as you can. That's just like the basic thing that we want everybody to take from this. So with that being said, and with the stage set, essentially we're facing a whole new era of infiltration where we have foreign operatives, jihadis, terrorists, whatever you want to call them, quietly embedded inside communities, much like the guys have already mentioned, whether it be in a custodial service or other. We have a lot of them who've actually penetrated hospitals. Khalid ran a story, I want to say 2 months ago, where there were 2 ISIS guys who worked in a hospital in South Florida, and they had very specific instructions as far as their attacks were concerned. Thank God we caught them, but it's like a rat, right? For every rat you see, there's 1,000 that you don't see. But the purpose of all these people who literally walked across the border, thanks to Joe Biden and Mayorkas and Obama, more so than anything, they've been busy doing, false dry runs to gather intel, SOP, standard operating procedures for the cops. Where do they tell people to exfil to? They're mapping infrastructure, and they're preparing all of these coordinated attacks with the real attackers hiding inside of the homes that they've been in since a day or two after they crossed the border. So nobody even knows the actual attackers are in the country. There's probably somewhere in the range of 10 support personnel per jihadi, maybe even higher than that, that's doing all the groundwork so that when they're called upon, meaning the actual, suicide guys, that they will have a ton of intelligence. So basically you've got S2 comes from a military background, Khalid intelligence background, Jeff CIA, and touched many aspects of the intelligence game during his career. He won't tell you he's an intel subject matter expert. Don't believe him. He knows way more than people like I do. So in my world, he's an expert. But all 3 of them are going to kind of guide us through how hostile networks get formed in America, how we can kind of get a leg up on them just by paying attention, keeping our faces out of these weapons of mass distraction, and actually paying attention to what's going on around us. And they're also going to give us some insight with regards to proven counterintelligence techniques and how to apply them, whether you have a MAG, a mutual assistance group, a neighborhood watch program, whatever the case may be, to hopefully detect what these guys are up to. If you detect them, we stand a much greater chance of disrupting whatever they have planned. We have a high level idea of what they have planned. We just don't have specific targets, other than we know tier 1 hospitals are, one of their top targets. So understanding, let's call it the threat landscape. So after 9/11 2.0, this is not going to be a one and done like 9/11 1.0. There will be follow-on attacks for the rest of our lives, our kids' lives, and their kids' lives, and so on, because we literally have tens of millions of people in the country that don't belong here. And we don't know how many of them, how many millions or hundreds of thousands are actual terrorists. They're not sitting here having a good time. They're sitting here waiting for retribution. And Khalid will speak to that as soon as I hand it over to him. I'm almost done the intro to this. So these infiltrations, by the way, clearly are not about one particular actor. These are entire armies that have embedded themselves now in America. And shame on anybody in the last administration who threw our frickin' border wide open. Treasonous scumbags. There is no other way to describe what they did. So at the end of the day, we already tell people you are your own first responder. That is only going to be amplified when 9/11 2.0 kicks off, because I would not blame a single law enforcement officer for protecting their family instead of putting their life on the line and being slaughtered by these shitbags who should not be in our country, period. So, Khalid, I want to start with you, and I want you to back up in time a little bit and tell us how we've been infiltrated since 9/11 1.0. It's not just the past 4 years. It's way more than that.
Yeah, it's been 20 years now. You've had people come in on proper passports. You've had people come in on proper visas. There's a reason why now the U.S. requires anyone from the Muslim world who's applying for a visa to enter the United States to hand over all their social media accounts. There's a reason for that. They want to see if you have anti-American thoughts, and they make a decision based on that. So this was a policy that was put in by, I think, about 5 years ago, maybe 6 years ago. The Department of Immigration put this in play, that if you're applying for a visa from the Middle East or from a Muslim country, you must hand over every single social media account that you have, from Instagram all the way to Facebook. And they will go through and they will sift through it, looking to see if you've made any anti-American comments. And if you have, and they see a preponderance of posts that are anti-American, they will not give you a visa, which is a good thing. I mean, you're doing a level of screening there. The second thing you have to understand is that when in 2001, when you handed over Afghanistan to the Taliban, you gave them a passport generation machine. They were taking terrorists and giving them brand new passports with brand new names and brand new birth dates, and letting them get visas and fly into the U.S. You also had a lot of people that, when the U.S. was exfilling from Afghanistan, that had jumped on the planes, had pretended that they were pro-America and that their lives were in danger, and they went to the U.S., they went to Europe. Those were all pro-Taliban, and you're seeing them now. You are seeing them now, because if you look at your crime rates, the bulk of your crime rates, whether it be Europe, whether it be the U.S., it is all Afghani, Syria, or Iraqi that is committing those crimes. So the problem that we've been seeing in Pakistan for the past 40 years, because we let the Afghanis come and live as refugees in our country, we've seen what they've done to us. And it's not, they've got a very interesting way of operating. They don't come and say, we're going to conquer your country. They come, they get a job, they're working, they slowly start to push their culture to you. They slowly start to push their belief system to you. As they're doing that, they're figuring out who's on our side, who's against us. And that's how they start building their target base. Once they start building their target base, they start to understand who to attack and who not to attack. The problem we have right now, and this is where the retribution concept comes in. Osama bin Laden, before he was killed, believed one thing: we want to bring the wars that you brought to our countries to your country. We want you to see the bloodshed that happened in Iraq, in Syria, in Afghanistan. We want you to see that on American streets, on London streets, on German streets. We want you to feel it. and understand what you did to us, so that you understand what you do, and then just walk away. You just get on your planes, you go back to your own countries, and all that dead body, all the bloodshed, all the families you destroyed are gone. There are 3 levels of this attack. One is your common citizen, who is basically what our tier 2 cities, what we've been talking about. Those are your common people that are basically living their lives detached from the news, detached from reality, going, oh, this cannot happen, this cannot happen, this cannot happen. And when it hits you, then you're going to be one of the first bodies that's dropped. The second tier are your vets. They have specifically targeted every vet. Wherever there's a vet community or a VA hospital, your vets are at risk. Live, work, and play. That's what we've decided. We've boiled this down to. Number 3, your government. They want the CIA. They want the White House. They want Congress. These are the targets that they've set. And the goal is to make America hurt as much as the Muslim world, where you've bombed and invaded, in their point of view, invaded and taken their safe space away from them. They want to do the same thing to you at this point. Their mentality is not like a U.S. military where you come in and you fight a war. They will bomb you. They will use car bombs. They will use siege tactics. They will use psychological warfare. They will force you to convert. They will do everything to you that they can possibly do to make you so afraid that all you can think about is, how do I survive?
So I want to do a not a funny ha-ha poll, but a legitimate poll. I'd like to know, out of our audiences, and this is going out to 9 platforms, if you believe that we are going to have to engage jihadis in war on American soil, put a 1 in the live chat. If you do not think we will have to engage the jihadis in a kinetic war on American soil, put a 0 in the live chat. Jeff, I have a very specific question for you. What assumptions with regards to, call it official protection, whether it be city, sheriff, state, federal, from a protection standpoint, leave most Americans completely unprepared for what's coming?
It's the assumption that those officials, is well-meaning as they are going to somehow prevent something from happening. They don't prevent, they investigate, they respond. How many bank robberies were disrupted before the robbers ever walked into the bank? And basically none. They are a reactive force. Yeah, there's community policing where you try and get the bad guys off the streets, which is great, and that's effective. But the reason they're bad guys because they've already done bad things multiple times. You're not stopping them before they've carjacked the 10th car. You're figuring out, okay, they've already carjacked 10. Let's put them in prison so they don't do it anymore. But these guys, the people we're talking about, don't have lengthy police records. Most of them they've come over in recent years. They're living a low-key life. They're trying desperately to stay under the radar. The way they get caught, and like we saw it in Detroit, was they were buying guns, they were going to gun ranges, they were doing high-profile things, and they're two American-born dudes. But if you got someone who's already been trained in a camp in Afghanistan, he doesn't have to go to a gun range. He already knows how to shoot. Okay, he's just waiting for someone to tell him to pull the trigger. So what's going to amount, those people are very hard to identify and to stop. And so your local law enforcement, the FBI, these people are not going to protect you when it happens.
Well, I don't think they need to be precision sharpshooters. If we look at Mumbai, for example, the very first phase of that attack was 2 of the 10 attackers went to a train station and inside 2 minutes slaughtered 50 people with full auto AK-47s.
Yeah, but I mean, you're not going to know who they are until they act.
Yeah, I
so
totally.
You got to be your own first responder.
Always. So S2, I'd like to get your thoughts on what patterns do these infiltrators use to build trust in our communities across the country. Because how many times have we seen something where one of them ends up, going off the range and saying, well, we're just nice to Americans until it's time to go, and we'll smile to their face while we're stabbing them in the back. And that's a pretty disconcerting thing, but pick that one up and run with it, S2.
So this is nothing new. These are the same infiltration tactics that have been used, that have been tried and true throughout history. One of the first ones that they do is they pose as legitimate community members or insiders. Basically, they've come into the country legitimately, as Khalid pointed out, on good passports and things like that. But then what they do is they turn around and they embed themselves in the mosques or in the diaspora neighborhoods, workplaces, or schools to build trust before they start recruiting or provoking violence. In Western Muslim communities, infiltrators will attend mosques or community centers. They're offering money and skills while pushing their escalation, i.e., from going to peaceful protests to attacks. They had some reports post 9/11 where informants were inserted into U.S. mosques post 9/11, but the terrorists reversed it by pretending to be devout newcomers. Another thing that they do is they exploit grievances and the victimhood revenge narrative. Jihadist groups will amplify local anger, like what we've been seeing for the last 5 years: police brutality, immigration enforcement, the Gaza conflict, and that's basically used to portray themselves as defenders or freedom fighters, as we're starting to hear that term come back now. We have the jihadists, we have the ISIS Hamas. They use TikTok and Telegram and other social media platforms to flood the vulnerable youth of our communities with October 7 footage or any other types of things, like the beheadings that we were seeing way back during GWAT. And that basically will take alienated kids and turn them into radicals that they'll answer the calls for resistance by any means. European lone actors since 2023 were radicalized by algorithmic amplification of the Gaza content, and we've seen that all over the place. The other tactic that they use will be entryism, and that's basically infiltrating institutions from within. We have some of these people that will come in to say that they'll get a visa to come here and say they're going to go to school here, but what their real intent is to get into the educational institutions and start radicalizing the students and getting them all ginned up to escalate for their own purposes. And it basically makes it look like, yeah, no, we just told them what the truth was. They're the ones that turned around and did it. And then you have another one, which is the online to offline funnel tactic, where they use social media radicalization, real world meetups, and then they'll start on the mainstream platforms like TikTok, X, and Facebook, and then migrate their recruit targets to encrypted apps for planning. And from there, they'll start small with just say, oh, go tag that wall over there. And then they'll say, oh, well, why don't you go ahead and throw a Molotov cocktail at that cop car over there? That would be a really good idea. That would show everybody. Then we have the provocation of false flag escalation. And that's exactly the piece that I just mentioned, is that you have radicalized these kids. Okay, go tag that wall. And the violence or the tactics just keep escalating, and it's all fun and family games and everything until somebody catches on fire. We've had other things too, where we've actually had Gaza families enter the U.S. on medical visas. That was exposed in 2020. That was exposed just this year, actually. Yeah. So that's another way they get in here. Other pieces we've seen too, I mentioned earlier before, the infiltration of the educational institutions. A very specific example of that, and this one pisses me off to no end, because he was just in New York at Mom Donnie's little celebration. It was Mahmoud Khalil.
Yep.
Mahmoud Khalil was there, and he was supposed to be deported from the United States. He is an MI6 asset that occupies an office in Syria for the
Yep.
government of Britain. He was sent here specifically to get the students at Columbia University and any other university he could get them to pay attention to. He was sent here specifically to radicalize those kids and get them all ginned up to do what they did. He was supposed to be deported. What the fuck happened?
I think that's the question we're all asking, but that was a pretty exhaustive list, and I appreciate the, all those great examples, S2. That was really awesome information. So moving into segment number 2, and for those of you who haven't followed us before, we do 5 segments on the main topic. So segment number 2 is how infiltration works, basically cover identities and network building. So Khalid will start by breaking down how hostile actors, call them jihadis, exploit cover identities. They pose as small business owners, charity workers, ordinary neighbors to gain, some influence and access in their community. And then we'll examine, how those operatives build networks through social engagement, local politics, commerce, recruiting sympathizers, radicalizing sympathizers as well, and creating these, call them hidden logistics chains that feed larger missions. And at the end of this particular segment, we'll circle back on explaining how spotting these people requires a high level of situational awareness that most Americans do not have, and that we really need to promote and get people to practice more regularly. But there's also stuff online, by the way, digital, call it pattern recognition is what the intel agencies would call it. But there's all kinds of tools that the bad guys are using online that are really not that sophisticated. And part of that's because they're bold and they don't think anybody is going to do anything about it. And the unfortunate part is they're probably right. But I've got 5 questions teed up here, and I'm going to go to you, Khalid, for the very first one, to give us an example of a foreign operative who's using civilian cover inside the United States right now.
Well, I'll give you really simple. We've talked about this before. S2 just mentioned it a couple seconds ago. Students. I come into the country, I enroll in for 1 semester, and I've got documented names and cases of this. People that have enrolled for 1 semester at a university, they are on the roll as a student, they have a student visa, but they're not enrolled in classes after that first semester. And what do they use that first semester for? Networking. They make friends, they get to know people, and they use that to network.
That's a great example. Can you give me some additional ideas or, ways that they exploit some cover identity, like a fake identity? What are some of the other?
Look, it's really easy. Look, ever since the Muslim world became unsettled because of what was going on with Al Qaeda and with Islamic State and all the terror activities that were going on here, what you started seeing was skilled workers that were engineers, carpenters, HVAC operators, drivers. If you had an education, and this is something that really pisses me off, Canada had an immigration process where if you had a certain skill set, a certain education, they gave you a number of points, and in this many months you'd get a visa to come into Canada. You'd get a job, you'd be able to work, and then you'd get nationality. You'd get a Canadian passport. That was the biggest screw up you could have ever made, because you allowed people who could not do anything in their own countries to come to your country and carry out an agenda that you didn't want them to carry out. But let's go back a little bit. What do these guys do? They come and they network and they build these nice little grocery stores, 7-Elevens, gas stations, motels. What are they doing? They're starting to mingle with people. They're starting to talk to people. They're building databases, because when you own a hotel, you're getting people's IDs, you're getting telephone numbers, you're getting email addresses. You've got all this information that you can use that to network. When you're in a university, you've got all kinds of students you can talk to. You get involved in sports, you get involved in extracurricular activities, you start networking, you start building your own group. That group is then slowly and surely radicalized. You don't drop it on them immediately. You start very slow. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? And I've said this a few times during broadcasts. The best way to catch one of these radicals is turn the conversation a little bit. Start talking about the Israel-Palestine conflict. Start talking about what happened in Bosnia. Start talking about what happened in Iraq. Start talking about what happened in Afghanistan. You'll see a flare-up. They cannot control their emotion. No matter how much they have been taught to control it, don't let it out, don't talk, they cannot control themselves. That anger comes out. That's someone you need to start watching. Those people have entered into the US communities, the European communities, the Canadian communities. They've now become part and parcel of your community. No one sees them out of place. In front of you, he may be a shopkeeper, but the moment he closes the gate on his shop, he goes to his radical mosque, prays, sits down with his radical group and goes, okay, this weekend, this is what we're going to do. We're going to go to such and such forest. We're going to go and train on these tactics and bring 2 or 3 friends with you that think like us. And we'll be up there all weekend. And they build. The problem that we have is that US intelligence itself is not looking at these people. They're not watching these people. I hate the statement on our radar, because it's not. They're not on your radar, because you wait until they carry out the attack and go, oh yeah, that guy was on our radar. What happened with the FBI in Detroit was the biggest screw up I have ever seen. You should not have rolled up that cell. If you read the indictment clearly says that they were of double mind as to whether they should carry out the attack or not. They were not even sure if they're going to carry out the attack or not. You should have monitored them, figured out where the other people were. You arrested 2 more people just yesterday in New Jersey that were connected to this plot. I guarantee you there's another 7 people that you need to be looking for. We only know of 5. There's 7 more on top of that, because when you read the indictment, their plan was completely what 9/11 2.0 is.
Yeah, I did. After you posted that, it was pretty telling. So, Jeff, I want to ask you for your thoughts on how do these jihadi infiltrators use online communities and social media to build trust in their communities and also gather intel on us, on Americans?
Well, Americans are stupid and put everything online. I mean, what I had for dinner, where I'm going on vacation, everything. And, you talk about pattern of life. They don't have to watch you. All they got to do is log on to your damn Facebook page. You give them your pattern of life. And so they can see, and Arab Americans do the same thing to a large extent, the innocent ones. And so, if you're a jihadi and you're trying to recruit an American Muslim, what makes him tick. He tells you his sports team. He tells you what kind of food he likes. He tells you, what mosque he goes to. And all you have to do is find something you can latch on to, and then exploit it, and then start with a comment on a post, and then go to a private message, and then say, hey, let's go do something in real life, man. You like to shoot, I like to shoot, or you want to shoot, I shoot. Hell, I got some guns, I'll let you shoot mine. Let's go shoot. And then you're off to the races. And you assess them for their vulnerability. Then once you get them in, one-on-one, you play the guilt card. Hey, you're Muslim, man. What have you done to spread the faith? What have you done to justify calling yourself a Muslim? What have you sacrificed? What have you done? And, there are so many, I knew one, his name was Ghazi Abu Mezer. He's in prison now. And I talked to him, and he was, he had a life. He lived in New York. He had friends. He went out, but he got recruited. And I asked him, I said, you had all these friends, you had this life in New York, and he was telling me how much he missed it. Why did you give it up for this? And he goes, I just got caught up in the enthusiasm and the excitement of it all. And so you find the one part of their life that there's something missing, you latch onto it and you go from there.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I've got one more question before we go to S2. I'm curious what your thoughts are as far as individual Americans, groups, whether they're organized or not, local businesses, pretty much everybody. What's each of our roles in detecting these, covers early? Because we're not going to do it with just the FBI saying they were on the radar. Like, the rest of us are going to have to see something, say something. But how do you get people into that mindset that are in your circle?
You got to, well, it's the old see something, say something. But a cover job, a cover life is there for cover, but it isn't really real. They may really own a store. They may really work at an insurance company, but it's just a cover. And so if you're in that world, you're a real bodega owner or something, and the guy, this other one, what he's doing doesn't make sense. It kind of does, but it doesn't. Because if you're a businessman, you want your business to be successful. And so you're going to work hard at it. But if you have someone who theoretically owns or runs a business and really kind of doesn't seem to give a rat's ass if it's successful or not, that doesn't make sense, especially to someone who says, I own this. Well, if you own it, it's your baby. You're going to work hard for it. You don't just kind of like, yeah, okay, I'll kind of maybe come in today. So that's the kind of stuff you need to look at. It doesn't make sense in a real world sense. And so you need to be alert to that. And then you start asking yourself other questions, or you find out, where does this guy live? How many people live in his house? How long has he been in business? What did he do before? Where did he come from? And how much of that is checkable? Yeah, I owned a convenience store in Dallas. Okay, well, let's do a little search on this guy. If he's a business owner and he's in Dallas, Texas, there's got to be some records of him somewhere. He's got to have a business license. All that crap's online. Look it up. See if he's there. And if you catch him in a lie, okay, why lie?
Yep. So I'm going to state the obvious, and you tell me what your thoughts are on this. But in my mind, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, it's a duck, and I'm going to profile like a mother.
Absolutely. Profiling works. That's why they do it, and that's why the bad guys hate it.
Yeah. So you have to engage in some element of profiling. I don't give a shit if it's politically correct or not, and watch the people who fit the description of a jihadi terrorist. Yeah. So S2, coming to you next here. How can communities, like whether it's a MAG, a neighborhood group, whatever the case may be, how can they quietly coordinate without tipping off these, infiltrators that, hey, that neighborhood over there, that MAG, that town, that community, they're working really hard, to put defenses in place. How do you keep that? How do you get it on the right people's radar and keep it off the bad guys' radar?
It's going to be different everywhere you go, but Jeff hit on something here a minute ago that's extremely important. Don't let yourself fall into a specific pattern of life. Vary the routes that you go, vary the places that you go. I mean, unfortunately, a lot of people have patterns of life that are kind of forced upon them because we're creatures of convenience. We have become creatures of convenience. We have specific places that we go at specific times of the day, and we go to these places because they're close by to where we live. Yep. If you vary that pattern, maybe you could develop 3 different patterns that you could mix up. Now, that's one way of doing it. As far as coordinating your defenses in your neighborhoods and things like that, you don't have to be overt with that. There are a lot of things that you can do to layer your defenses through your neighborhood. For instance, you could have spools of barbed wire in your garage, not necessarily deployed, but ready to be deployed when needed. Have a stack of 2x4s sitting outside your barn or your garage or whatever. There's nothing suspicious about that. But you have those things there and that wouldn't tip anybody off, particularly if you live in a rural community. So you have to look at what type of environment you're in to determine what kind of defenses you're going to need. And just like we say, at least for the things that I teach a lot of improvised hand-to-hand stuff. If you have to have a weapon, pick up a ballpoint pen, get a big bolt on a piece of cord, things like that. So you look at the things that are multi-use and deploy them as everyday items, knowing that they could be deployed as defenses or as weaponry. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, it does. And just one more question. So when communities are starting to become aware and, you know, trying to gather some counterintelligence, what are the ethical limits, not the legal limits, but the ethical limits for citizens who are trying to do their due diligence and document, spot, you know, basically track the bad guys in their neighborhood?
Well, I'll answer that with a question. What is your ethical limit to save your life or the people around you?
No such thing.
There you go.
Good answer. Good answer, S2. All right, so let's move into segment number 3 now, which is identifying the indicators. So behavioral and technical signs. So Khalid's going to highlight the behavioral red flags that reveal somebody is an infiltrator / jihadi, unusual curiosity about infrastructure, shifting personal stories, which speaks to what Jeff touched on, unexplained funding. You know, are they closely paying attention to things like, you know, police activities, those sort of things that just strikes you as unusual? Let me give you an example. The astronaut university is just south of us here, Embry-Riddle, and Embry-Riddle trained some of the 9/11 pilots. And I know people who firsthand were present when they said, we don't need to know how to land the plane. We just need to know how to take off. And not a single person spoke up about it. I mean, talk about a massive red flag and completely ignoring it. So Khalid and Jeff and Nestor are also going to, you know, explain some of the technical indicators, you know, whether that be people with odd, you know, electronics, people running drones, and it just doesn't feel right, doesn't look right. Trust your gut. Like if somebody's flying a drone, this is crazy, by the way. The FAA considers a drone an airplane. If they fly a drone into your yard to spy on you, and they're not spying because they're easily seen, and you shoot at them or shoot them down, you're getting charged and going to jail. It's happened in Florida here a number of times. It's the same equivalent legal perspective of shooting down a plane, which is complete bullshit in my opinion, but that's where we're at with that. And then in addition to those things, I'd like all three of you, you know, I've got different questions for each of you, but speak towards HUMINT, HUMINT, for those people out there who've never heard of it, which stands for human intelligence, and layering in things like technical observation, following their digital footprints, those sort of things, and using that to kind of confirm your initial suspicions. So Khalid, right off the bat here, give us some ideas on the top behavioral patterns of embedded operatives that you've studied, not theoretical stuff, but stuff you've studied firsthand. What are we looking for behavior wise beyond the obvious?
They won't look like a jihadi. First things first, they will not look like a jihadi.
No shit.
No shit. When we were invaded in 2007 by the Taliban in Pakistan, when we were exfilling all of these citizens out of the areas that were controlled by the Taliban so we could run kinetic operations, the Taliban shaved off their beards, completely shaved off their beards, washed up, looked really clean, and walked through army checkposts, even though we had pictures of every single one of them. But we had pictures of them with beards, not clean shaven. And they walked through, they left, and they were gone. The biggest problem you've got is if you're looking for typical jihadi facial structure, clothing type, you're looking for the wrong things. because we've seen how quickly they change. I have been tracking a guy over the past 2.5 weeks now. And I have watched him change his behavior because he knows someone's watching him. And I don't even, and I'm a counterintelligence specialist. I don't get close enough where you can see me. You will not know I'm watching you, but the hairs on the back of his neck have stood up. He has shaved off his beard. He has cut his hair. He's changed the way he dresses now, and I'm tracking the whole thing and watching him. And I've gotten all the way to the point where he lives. The biggest thing that you need to understand is that when you are looking at jihadi in the West, they have been told, go to clubs, go to bars, drink, have a girlfriend, swear, do everything that a normal American will do. That's why when we talk about, certain push points, conversations, make an outlandish comment about a Muslim, see how he reacts. Justify a war that he's going to react on. Because look, if you ask me about the Afghanistan war, I was on the U.S.'s side. That we fought hand in hand with the American forces in Afghanistan. So for me, I don't react on those statements. But someone who's a trained jihadi will react. The problem you've got to get beyond is the basic profiling. Basic profiling does not work. You need to know that these people are going to lie to you. They are going to lie to you. That means that what we've done in the past, we ask you where you're from, we ask you what you do, we ask you how you behave, right? We wait a couple weeks and we ask those 3 questions again, and we see if we get a different answer. You are going to slip up in your story, because if I ask you, Jeff asks you, S2 asks you, and you ask them, he will tell 4 different stories. And those 4 different stories will tell you there's something wrong with this guy. The idea of understanding how they behave, the first thing you need to understand is they are pathological liars. Pathological liars. Number 2, their mentality is to look for things where you can cause the greatest amount of damage. You are not looking at targets that are little houses here, little houses here, little houses here. They are looking at buildings. They are videoing buildings. They will literally stand in a courtyard, and they will video the entire building, top to bottom, where the doors are, how do you get in, how do you get out, where are their alleyways at. They will go to the police station and stand far enough back so that it doesn't raise an alarm bell, and they'll video the entire police department. How big is the building, where are their cars parked, how do they roll out, when does the shift change happen, where do you see police, where do you not see police. They will be scanning for security cameras. The one thing that we found when we did this in Islamabad, we saw people walking around with a map of Islamabad and marking where surveillance cameras were on the road. And those are things that will trigger you. Again, the only way you're going to find them is by not looking at your mobile phone. Because when your head is down, you're not seeing what someone else is doing. And when you're not seeing it, you're not going to recognize it. And if you don't recognize it tomorrow, that ends up being a problem. Now, a couple of things. The basic Islamic tenets disappear. The only thing you're going to see them do is pray 5 times a day. That's the only thing you're going to see them doing. And they will do that as secretively as possible, because their intent is to show you they are just like you. That's how they ingrain themselves. That's how they get closer to you. That's how they can figure out what your touch points are. When they figure out your touch points, then they figure out how to manipulate you. The low-hanging fruit is the easiest fruit to get. Back when the Olympics were going on in France, we were screaming and yelling at the French police and at the German police that you are about to get hit. ISIS is putting out flat out pictures in their magazines that they're going to hit you. They didn't listen. 2 weeks before the Olympics were about to start, they rolled up 16 cells of good Christians who had been converted online, radicalized online, were learning how to make bombs, were learning how to carry out lone wolf attacks, just for the Olympics. 2 16-year-olds were caught in Berlin building chemical weapons.
Yeah, I caught that. It's just crazy. Absolutely crazy. Well, I appreciate that, Clede. Jeff, I want to get your input on what low-cost tools or training could the average citizen get to help them gather actionable observations, keyword actionable, but doing it safely.
It's kind of a toughie. If they're in your neighborhood, especially if they're your neighbors, security cameras. You can get a cheap security cam for $20 that records. And, you know, if it's visible from outside their house, it's not protected at all. You can put a camera out your window and look at their house and watch everything they do. That's 100% legal. Especially if it's on your property, you're not going in their house, you're not peeping through their windows. And you can look at their pattern of life. You can look at when they come and go. You can look at who visits their house. What do those people look like? But they won't look like jihadis. I mean, Khalid and S2 are right. The 9/11 hijackers went to strip clubs and drank and smoked and partied and all that, because that was their cover. Their cover were hard partying college students. So you got to be, they're not going to be showing up wearing a thobe. They're not going to be rolling out a carpet and praying to Mecca 5 times a day in their front yard. So if they're good, if they're smart, it's difficult.
Yeah,
they can't hide the pattern of life stuff. They can't hide their comings and goings. And if they are in a house that they are they have 5 people staying there who never leave the house, how much groceries are they buying? If a guy lives alone, is he spending $300 a week on groceries? That doesn't make sense. So that tells you something.
We live in small town USA. We've got the lowest crime rate in the state of Florida, and we're locked by 2 different counties in the ocean. This town will never grow beyond what it is. We had these people move in a couple doors down from us, and there was one problem after another. And the first time the cops came and I spoke to them, they said, do us a favor and start writing down what cars are coming and going. And if you can see the tag, grab the tag. It took quite a while. It was a better part of a year. And they ended up busting them for dealing drugs out of their house in a very upper class, middle upper class neighborhood. But we handed over all that information, and they were glad to get it. So good advice on your part. Definitely actionable. So S2, how can churches in particular in these small towns recognize that people are posing, that they're not really a member of the church? And take it one step further, how can they determine that people who are making inquiries over the internet are just probing for information and that they're probably not serious about being part of or joining this church?
So there's 2 tools that I can think of off the top of my head. One is Google Alerts, which is free. There's another one called TalkWalker Alerts. And if you were to put exact phrases into these alert systems, like for instance, if you live in, let's say, Branson, Missouri, you could type in there, Branson, Missouri, Christmas Parade Route 2025 PDF. And it would show you how many people are searching for that search term. And then the same thing with churches. You could put in church name plus security cameras and see how many people are searching that information. Or same town name, police shift change times. Those are the things you're looking for there. For instance, there was actually a real world scenario where this was used, where there was one in Branson, Missouri, where an attacker searched the term Branson landing 4th of July firework barge GPS coordinates. They searched that 19 days before the rental. And So these are ways that you can do that. The other thing that you can look at too is start looking for, if you've got somebody's name that's probing a place, you could walk up to them and say, hey, what's your name? Blah, blah, blah. You could go out there and start looking up their Facebook profile and start looking for red flag indicators. For instance, the account was created maybe less than 30 days ago, or their profile pic is AI generated. The really hard part of spotting all of this is there are websites out there that I've used them myself for creating a lot of different burner accounts out there for my open source information research, that I can build multiple legends simultaneously for myself, right on down to the pictures, the names, the nationality, my ethnicity, everything. And all I have to do is let those things kind of stew for a while slowly building them. So that's the one part that makes it very tough. But in the cases of Facebook accounts or other social media accounts, the accounts would join only local groups because they're looking for specific information within that community. Like First Action would join Branson buy sell trade, for instance, and I use Branson because I don't know, it just comes to the top of my head. But you also look at the account too. How many times has that account posted? If they've actually done any searching and things like that, how many times have they posted that account? And then look at how many people that they have friends. If they have less than 50, or I wouldn't say that because I have less than 50 friends. I have less than 10 friends. But if the number of pictures and photos that they post is incongruent with the number of friends that they have on that particular account, that's a red flag there too. There's also another one too, Eventbrite, or any of these RSVP sites. You could look at things like how many RSVPs have replied to an event. All of this is pretty complex. There is a bit of a learning curve to all of this. There's also the Ring Neighbors app. You can start
Really
looking
good.
at that. You can start looking at that too. Other thing that I used to use, there was an app that I used to locate crime within my particular area. This is when I was hunting down a group of kids in my areas that were basically going around and looking for unlocked car doors and things. And it was easy to find them because these kids generally were living within 5 miles of where their targets were. So they were pretty easy to find.
Wow.
But other things that they could look for too would be sudden drone flights over the church at 2 a.m. or, inordinate times of the day. We don't consider that to be, some people may not consider that to be digital, but the electronic footage that you catch from a drone is definitely digital.
That's odd.
You've also got the I'm the Lost Tourist Wi-Fi probe. Going up to the church and say, hey, I'm not getting any I'm not getting any mobile signal out here. What's your church's password to your Wi-Fi? So I can make a phone call, or I can, look up a map on how to get where I'm going. There's also a mass follow of youth group kids on Instagram. Like I said, there's just all kinds of things. There's actually a real playbook for this. There's also other things too. Start looking, one of the things that we discovered when we were way on early in the days when we were looking at all of these protests were going on, and we said, yeah, these are not organic. Well, you start looking on Craigslist for things. Yep. We started seeing paid protester jobs that were out there, but that's not the only place. You can also look on Indeed and ZipRecruiter for the same type of things. Like the same guy applies to be a janitor at a church or a school in the same county. Resume, you look at their resumes too. If their resumes don't add up, this is how I pinpointed a cartel member that actually had a post office box in the Pentagon.
Wow.
Um,
What somebody responded that their Wi-Fi password pound salt. The comment of the night right there.
But yeah, there's you could, like I said, the Google alerts and the Talkland and putting in those things, and you can have those pre-configured alerts already set up to notify you if there's a spike in those particular search terms. So if it notifies you, that can give you a pretty good attack indicator.
Yeah, that's great advice, us to appreciate that. And we're at the end of chapter 3, getting ready to go into the final 2 chapters. And I want to quickly mention for y'all, if you go to survivaldispatch.news, that's our Substack. When we're broadcasting live, you'll see the video at the top, like you can see right now. When we're not broadcasting live, the top article will be the SITREP for the day, the situation report. And we've got this amazing community that has gelled around Survival Dispatch News. That's incredible. We have people across the country now that are reporting in on stuff that's happening that you see in the news cycle, and what the news is telling you in many instances is completely contradictory to what's really happening. I know, shocked, big surprise, but the Guardian Network has done an amazing job of that. The other thing that has been a really pleasant surprise, we started breaking apart all the Signal chats. So we have 4 chats on Signal for our Guardians, and one of them is fairly new, and it's a survival and prepping channel. It has absolutely exploded with people sharing information. There was a massive thread today on growing your own fruits and vegetables in your backyard, and the amount of knowledge that was transferred and given was pretty awesome. One of the other channels is our Guardian channel. That's kind of like the saloon, for lack of a better term, wide open talks. Then we have our Survival Dispatch emergency notification system channel, and what that essentially is if we issue any type of emergency notification, it goes 4 different places. It goes to our Substack for paying Guardian members. It goes to your email. It goes to the SDN's channel on Signal, Survival Dispatch Emergency Notification System. And if you have the POC-Link radios, it'll go to them as well. And just a quick update on the group for the POC-Link radios. The groups are limited to 100 radios right now, but they're releasing a new version of the smartphone app for these imminently that removes that limit. So if you bought these and you're a Guardian, just hold tight. As soon as we have the QR code for y'all to join the one big group for the Guardians, I will make sure that you get that absolutely right away. Our paying Guardians only pay $7.99 a month or $74.99 a year, which gets them 2.5 months for free. And there's all kinds of other values that get layered on. You get behind the scenes content, you get early access to content, you get all of our sources for our SITREPS, and there's more than that, but I'll leave it at that for this particular juncture. So getting back to the matter at hand, the next chapter up, or segment I should say, is organizing community defense from watch groups to counterintelligence mindset. So on this segment, we're going to focus on organizing neighborhood defense units that move beyond passive observation to active prevention, starting with, disciplined watch structures and clear communication lines. Khalid spoke to this at length last night. He's going to add some more meat to the bone tonight. And we're also going to stress developing this counterintelligence mindset where you're looking for patterns that are unusual. You're mapping what is normal community rhythm, but spotting what just doesn't fit in. A great example would be, we've had 3 really bizarre instances in the past 5 or 6 weeks here. The first one is we had a guy show up at our front door at 8:30 a.m. on a Sunday morning. My wife was in bed watching him on the Ring camera. I was in the shower, and he took stock of everything at the front of our home, for cameras, lights, you name it. And we've got a steel storm door over top of the man door. And at the very end, he pounded on it. And then he looks right in the Ring camera and goes, "Is anybody in there?" And I don't think that particular guy was somebody who was casing us to break in. I think he was paid by somebody to come and take a closer look at our property. Lo and behold, the week after that, this guy shows up 3 times. 3 times he comes to our front door, eyes everything up, doesn't ring the doorbell, doesn't leave a card. I mean, here in Florida, you've got tree companies coming to your door constantly, leaving you cards, for tree maintenance. Wasn't anything like that at all. And the one time that I could get away because it wasn't in a meeting, because I watched it over here, he was already gone before I was able to get outside, see what was going on. But the third one's really crazy. Guy pulls into our driveway at the end of my driveway. I'm watching him on the camera here. So I grab a gun and I go out with the gun clearly visible. And I'm videoing this guy because he's sitting in his car at the end of my driveway videoing our property. So he puts it in gear, puts his toe in it, peels down the street an eighth of a mile, does a U-turn, comes back, rolls his window down, calls me everything but a white man, and asks me why I'm videoing him. And I said, you're at the end of my driveway taking pictures or videoing my property. You don't belong in this neighborhood. And that's why I'm taking videos of you. So he cussed at me some more. He drove an eighth of a mile the other direction, did a U-turn, came back, rolled his passenger window down so he could cuss at me, went another eighth of a mile down the road, did a U-turn, and then flew away. And it was highly unusual. There's only one way in and out of our community. He had no purpose to be in our community. And you know what? We get threats all the time. I'm not going to speak for other people, but put it this way. Almost everybody on the Survival Dispatch News team has received threats because we've exposed something, hit a nerve, we've been over the target. So with that being said, Khalid, I want to come to you, and here's some stuff we didn't get into last night that I'd really like to hear more about. How do you connect your regional group, your neighborhood group on a bigger area? Like, how can you coordinate with more groups? How do you approach law enforcement and not be seen like you're some crazy wacko and you end up on the wrong list? We didn't touch on that last night, so pick it up and run with it whichever way that you want.
Well, the way I like to do it, and I've talked this to people, get an encrypted app of your own and create a group. And in that group, on a daily, on a weekly basis, put up a written threat assessment. What have I seen in my neighborhood? What vehicles are coming through? Who has bothered people at houses? Then you add in people who are in other neighborhoods. So you have one central location where everyone is dumping information. You don't make it open so everyone can talk and discuss. Kind of like some of our Guardian groups where only the admins are allowed to post. So when you have a group leader, for example, in one part of the city, another group leader in another part of the city, another group leader in another part of the city, you make those 3 admins and they're allowed to post, they're allowed to discuss things back and forth. Everyone else is allowed to see, but they're not allowed to post. The biggest problem you're going to have is people misidentifying things, because you either operate from a point of view of you're gathering information, or you operate from a point of view where you're scared. And there's those are 2 very different mentalities. When you're working counterintelligence, you have to put the fear aside. And part of the way of putting that fear aside is getting used to being out there. Like, one of the things we teach counterintelligence to people. One of the things we teach people is learn how to be a gray man. Learn how to move without leaving a signature anywhere. Do not be memorable. If you go to a shop, do your shopping, don't engage. Go in, do your shopping, and leave. Become someone that people don't remember. That way, when you're doing surveillance on someone, when you're gathering intelligence on someone, you're able to do it without being identified. If you're going into every place and saying, hey, my name is Khalid, I'm from so-and-so, and I live here, you've become a showpiece. Now, if you're trying to do intelligence on someone, they can very, very easily gather that information from you. How do you connect that to the police? You get a like-minded police officer and you add him to that group. That way, he's getting the same information that you're getting, and he's getting it real time. So he's seeing what's coming up, what neighborhoods are being targeted, how they're being targeted. That information can then be passed along to a sheriff, to a police chief, to other patrol officers that, listen, this neighborhood's being harassed a lot. can you drive around that neighborhood a little bit more and make sure that there's a visible police presence? It's not parking a car there, it's driving around and making sure that people know that there's a cop there. The problem we have right now, Chris, is because the federal government has not taken this seriously, people have not taken it seriously. And people will not take it seriously until A, the federal government does something, or B, shit hits the fan. And the problem we've got is trying to get people to understand that there are a lot of things you can do before things go bad. If you don't get into those things, you're going to have problems. Like, again, I'll give you the example. One of the apps that we put on every phone, on every staff member at Command 11, what 3 words? You put in a location, you put the location into the app, it gives you 3 words. You can broadcast those 3 words across open chat messaging. No one knows what those 3 words mean. But the guy who's got that app puts those 3 words and knows the exact location he needs to come to.
That's great advice.
Chris,
Khalid.
can I add something onto what Khalid's saying here?
Yep.
I can tell you that this technique does work, because this is exactly what we did with Team America. When we had people that started to get word that Team America was in existence, we set up specific signal chat rooms with only specific people that were allowed to be in those rooms. We had generalized rooms where people could go in and talk and be able to view the channel, but they could go in here and talk about it. We only had team leaders in each state that were allowed to go into some of these things, and they would gather information from their particular team in their particular town in their particular state and post that stuff in there. So I can tell you that this does work. This is how Team America was built.
Yeah, I'd love it. And we have a couple that are read-only groups that are for disseminating information. Jeff, before I come to you with your question, Diggs Outdoors said in the comments that he was going to pick up a square body. So I'm an old school guy. That's my square body. So it's got a 383 stroker, punch 60 over, and made over 650 horse on a bench dyno. It's over 500 at the rear wheels. Those are 40-inch super swampers on it for tires. It's Chris Heaven to a T for those of you who love old square bodies. And the one other thing I'll add, when Clede mentioned the What's 3 Words app, it's a topic that's come up recently in our signal chats, is having some sort of code word that means it's on, the shit is hitting the fan. Our word in our family is avalanche. If anybody says avalanche at any point in time, it means drop what you're doing. We're at a restaurant, drop what you're doing, we're leaving, and no questions asked. If I say anything in perspective or related to, I should say, avalanche online, anything, a video, using the word, me saying the word, anything like that, that means that shit is going down. And that's the code word for Chris Evans, Chris Evans' family, and Survival Dispatch. And
I'm thinking pork and beans.
You're going to bring out the immature in me, because every time I hear pork and beans, I think beans, the magical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot, the better you feel. Let's have beans for every meal. So 56 going on 16, right? Maybe even younger. Anyway, I want to get Jeff up here for a serious question instead. So, Jeff, you've got this neighborhood group and you're gathering information. What should or shouldn't be shared with agencies at any level, any type of agency?
Well, assuming by agencies you mean government agencies.
Correct.
I think what you shared with the police is, it's not going to necessarily be verified information, but information that you have high confidence in. Okay, strange car in your neighborhood, you've logged it 4 or 5 times. Okay, it's not just one car driving through your neighborhood you haven't seen before, but this car's been back multiple times. Yeah, okay, that's, to me, that's a high probability of, okay, there's an issue here. So you don't want them chasing their tails. You don't want them thinking you're a nut, that every car that comes in your neighborhood is a bad guy. So you want to give them stuff and let them know that you think it's a problem and this is why, and you give them your reasoning behind it so that they know you're not just pulling this out of your rear end. I think something you should also consider not sharing is if someone told you something in confidence and you don't share that, or you certainly don't share where you got it from. Because if they found out that you violated that confidence, they're not going to give you more information in the future.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes perfect sense. S2, coming back to you just because we've got a little bit out of order there. And I'm curious if you could tell me, what are your recommendations, simple recommendations for, small town America to harden soft targets like schools or churches? And of course, our good friend Keith Graves at Christian Warrior Training offers up a immense amount of information on this, but maybe just hit the high points as to whether it's schools, churches, or anything else you can think of in small town America. How can they target harden if they don't have a huge budget? And if they do have a budget, what are the things they should be spending money on?
Well, first off, it's a layered approach, just like any defensive position that you're going to have. Your first layer of defense is going to be your parking lots or your playgrounds, things of that nature. You need to have people that I wouldn't want to say, if it were me, unfortunately with churches, it's going to be kind of hard to get away with this, but you want to have people that look like they belong there, that aren't necessarily there for a purpose. So like I said, for churches, it's going to be difficult because you're going to have people patrolling the parking lots and things of that nature. Your second line of defense is going to be, well, it's not really defense, it's more of passive collection, would be video camera systems, whether they be the inexpensive wireless ones that can be circumvented easily or wired ones, but have them up at your entry and exit points, and make sure that your entry and exit points are secured. Which brings me next to the next layer is your inner perimeter. You're going to want to put obstacles up within that inner perimeter. So a lot of churches put up ballards on their sidewalks. There have been numerous bollards, pardon me. You have numerous instances where people with small cars have tried to ram the inside of churches that didn't have those types of protections. And then, of course, you're inside the church. You should have your security team posted in such a way that they could be greeters at the door to catch people walking in that have certain behaviors that they're looking for, that are red flag indicators. And if you do happen to run into one of those, you have the ability with other church security members to take them off to the side. Schools are a different thing, because a lot of the schools are very sensitive to security. Like some of the schools now, you can't even, used to be able to walk in a front door of a school with no problem, just open the door, walk in. Now you have to press a button on an intercom and tell them who you are, you're on camera, they've got your picture. You have to have a reason for being there, so you have to basically state your business for being there. But the problem with schools, once again, the school districts don't see a priority in security at the school. And I would say if you wanted to really harden up a school, let teachers carry, because school resource officers, while that's all nice and fine, there's not enough guns there. And the question is your school resource officer going to actually be armed enough to take on 6-7 attackers?
Well, let me give you an interesting example. So our regular followers know that Dr. Michael Fabian and I are friends, and we do a lot of communication stuff, comms, gear stuff on the side. I asked him about a certain hospital in Central Florida here that has 158 entrance points, actual doors. I said, what do y'all have for security, as in security guards? He said they have 5 security guards. Only one of them has a revolver. The other 4 only have less lethal options at their disposal, and not one of them weighs less than 300 pounds. And it's not 300 pounds like somebody who's fit. It's 300 pounds who's, they're in shape, but the shape is round. So
Chris, I was at a hospital today, and I was observing those very things that you just described. None of the security guards are armed.
Yeah.
They're one of their main electrical boxes on the back of the hospital is on the outside of the building, where they might bring a bus that has an MRI, a mobile MRI or something that they bring in there. They left the cable connected to the connector outside, laying right there on the ground next to that electrical box. And I'm thinking to myself, gee, if I'm an attacker, I could walk up there with an axe or a pickaxe and hit that thing and basically black out the entire hospital.
Short them out. That's insane. But again, most people don't have that security mindset. So we're moving into the fifth and final segment tonight, responding to a multi-city attack when infiltration turns to activation. So in this final segment, Khalid's going to start by walking us through the process of infiltration flipping to activation. In other words, the moment that sleepers receive the green light to start launching their synchronized attacks and sabotaging cities across America. At this point in time, the intelligence says 10 to 15 tier 2 cities, which are population 100,000 to 500,000, but also that only have one level 1 trauma center. I'll let Khalid speak to what the importance of the level 1 trauma hospital is. And then through the Q&A process here, we're going to explain how survival depends on pre-built communications redundancy. For those of you who follow this, you know that I'm brutal for this stuff. So the old adage in the communications world is 3 is 2, 2 is 1, 1 is none. Well, Dr. Fabian and I are getting ready to do the mother of all comms videos. Everything on that table is shortwave HF. We've spent over $10,000 on gear now out of our own pockets. We probably have another $1,000 to go or so. So I don't subscribe to 3 is 2, 2 is 1, 1 is none. For me, 15 is 14, 14 is 13, 13 is 12, and on down the list. Cannot stress how important comms is. And hang with us if you want more information on that, meaning not tonight, but in general. Subscribe to our channels and subscribe to our Substack in particular, because they're the only ones who don't censor us or suppress us. I have 65,000 followers on Substack, and I guarantee you this video by tomorrow morning will have 25,000 views at a minimum. I have 443,000 subscribers on YouTube, and this video will be lucky if it goes over 5,000 views in the first 24 hours. The suppression is unbelievable. Anyway, getting back into the last little bit here. So when you get the comms gear, by the way, you have to have everybody set up. There's too many people go out, they buy a Baofeng radio, UV5R, and it says, oh, it's good for 25 miles, and they think they're good. They turn it on, they go, okay, they turn it off, put it in storage. They never use it. They don't know how to use it. And what they don't realize is that that radio in an urban setting is lucky if it has a mile, mile and a half, maximum 2 mile range. It's nothing like what's put on the box. The box is describing optimum conditions in the salt flats or a city that has repeaters. The only state that has a really kick-ass repeater network built out is California. The rest of us, not so much. But anyway, that aside, cannot overstress how important that the radios are. And by the way, if you're in an emergency situation, whether it's just you or it's the entire area, you can use ham radios regardless of what the SAD hams say. They will like to tell you, that you've got to do this. These are the hall monitors, right? They're whiny bitches, for lack of a better term. And don't pay any attention to that. FCC says emergency situation, use whatever radio and whatever channel you want to save yourself or save somebody else. Anyway, I also hope that this last segment here, we can really make an impression upon you that being proactive in this stuff, this is not paranoia. This is just good sense, to be quite honest. And the time to start crossing T's and dotting I's was actually yesterday. But if you can't start till tomorrow, so be it. Khalid, I know you've touched on this before, but what visible signs suggest a sleeper cell is preparing to attack or preparing to activate?
Well, the first thing you need to look at is when you see a lot of Muslims disappear from normal life, because that support network, we've discussed this on a number of episodes. That support network that is supporting the safe houses, they're the ones going to the market. They're the ones doing the shopping. They're the ones doing the work in the normal jobs to earn money. They're the ones taking the ATM card that has been given to the attacker to an ATM machine, getting money out for them so they can buy food and whatever they want to buy. When you see those people disappear, start your countdown, because you're 2 weeks away from attack. That's the first trigger for us. Number two, when you see an increase in activity, and this is why we're watching Europe very closely. If you watch Germany has slowly escalated in the number of attacks they're seeing. It's been slow. First, it was France. They did all the attacks in France. They pumped all the way up at the last attack I remember in France was they blew up a car. Then they moved over and they started pumping up in Germany. Germany was interesting because all the border areas around very peaceful countries were where it was being problematic for Germany. The country next to them was peaceful, but had a very high immigrant base, and Germany was feeling the push from it. Knife attacks, gas attacks, car rammings were all happening in Germany, but they were coming across the border from another country. So they were testing everything from that point of view. When you look at what's going on, number one, you see a ramp up. When you hit the ramp up and all of a sudden everything goes quiet, you need to start your countdown. The people that are running support networks, when they disappear, start your countdown. And when I say start your countdown, I mean 2 weeks. Within 2 weeks of those people disappearing, everything going quiet, you're going to get hit. And you're going to get hit very hard. I'll give you an example. The day the plane crashed in Louisville, Reagan National Airport was shut down because of a bomb threat on a plane. How many bomb threats have we seen on airplanes in the recent past? It's scaling up. At some point, everything will go quiet. And when it goes quiet, that's when you go trigger on. Start carrying your weapons, start being head on a swivel. The thing that people need to understand is to keep yourself from being identified, you don't look at people. Look for reflective places. Building glass, mirrors on walls, stainless steel someplace where you can see someone and what they're doing. So that way you're not putting your face in front of them so you can be recognized. There are too many things going on that don't have an explanation. That's the biggest problem I've had. As someone who works in counterterrorism, I'm always looking for an explanation. Why did this happen? Why did this happen? Why did this happen? Things are being brushed under the carpet. Things are being brushed under the carpet. Things are being brushed under the carpet. No one's explaining why things are happening. The plane crash that happened in Louisville the other day, the plane was 35 years old. And how many people died because of it? The number of refineries that have blown up in the past, in this year alone, that's an alarm bell for me. The number of hoaxing calls that have happened, the number of active shooters on university campuses that have happened. But the interesting thing you'll see, and this is how we figure out patterns. We lay out where the attacks were called in from. We lay out what happened where. That way we get a nice marking. This is where it's all congested at. This is an attack point because they're testing everything here. We know the East Coast of the United States is a big target. A very big target, the East Coast of the United States, because all of the incidents we've seen have been there. And if you look at the infiltration of the radical population, it's all been on the East Coast. If you look at all the jihadis coming down from Canada, they're all coming to New York. And from New York, they're moving into other states. Pennsylvania, New York, Virginia, North Carolina, Rhode Island,
Maine.
Ohio. These are all big states that we're looking at. Georgia is another one. Georgia is one that we are looking at very closely because Georgia has Atlanta. Atlanta has too many variables playing. You have gang violence, you have cartels, and you have jihadis. That's a recipe for disaster.
Atlanta is a disaster completely. So, Jeff, before I go to the question that we put in the brief, I wonder if you want to take a stab at this for this viewer here. Why was New York doing commercials on what people in New York should do if under a nuke attack? He's got a couple other questions, but really the commercials in New York City as far as what people should do if under a nuke attack. Any speculation
there? Well, I think the nuke attack, you know, it's going to be the Russia or China. So it's okay to do that because they're a threat that's far away. And let's be honest, the odds of a nuke attack are pretty low because whoever nukes us will nuke them back and nobody wins a nuclear war.
Right.
They won't do it for a terrorist attack because the attack is going to come from people who are already here. Yeah. And they're identifiable and they're in certain communities. And it's an uncomfortable truth that they don't want to face. It's the same reason you don't profile when that is the easiest way to figure out to find who the bad guys are.
Okay, fair enough. So just getting back on track here, so we wrap up chapter 5 or segment 5. How long would you speculate it takes from the time that the command and control guys give the green light to the sleeper cells and the first attacks actually start? Is there any window there, or is it just boom, go?
There's probably a window because I'm sure when their plan is they want to do it at a certain time of day to take advantage of kids in school, traffic, all sorts of stuff. There may even be a day of the week because if they're going to start with, say, they want to attack a football stadium, well, it's got to be full of people or there's no point. So you're going to have to wait for, depending on what stadium it is, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that's going to determine when they launch. Now they could give the go-ahead order 24 hours in advance, but you have to know more about the attack planning as to what kind of prep time do they need? Are there weapons with them, or do they have to go retrieve them from a storage locker somewhere? And maybe it's going to take time. Do they have to kind of muster their troops, so to speak? If the guys aren't all living together in one location, the message is going to have to come down to the cell leader, and then the cell leader is going to have to reach out and give a go order to all his guys and give them a rendezvous time. And I'm sure the location's already been set up, but give them a rendezvous time and say, okay, Saturday at 8 o'clock, we're going to meet. We're going to go from there. So yeah, there probably would be a lag of some sort. And the more sophisticated the attack, probably the greater the lag because it has more moving pieces and you've got a lot more ducks you have to get in a row. If it's just a one-off, I'm going to set off a car bomb somewhere, I mean, a guy can just get in his car and go do it. But something like this, they would need time to get it going. It's like a troop movement. Mm-hmm. Okay, if it's a small unit, it's not that difficult. If it's a brigade, it's more difficult.
The reason I asked, I was just trying to identify if there was some opportunity to potentially intercept the go signal. Maybe not. But if go ahead, Clete, what do you want to add to that?
Well, you have to understand, all of your attackers are living in one house together, and you've got a cell leader. So what you're looking at is probably a 12 to 14 hour time frame from when they get the go order. Okay. You have weapons that are being stored in empty houses or in storage facilities. So there'll be a van that will go and pick up all the weapons. They will bring them to the specific houses and drop them off. They will leave one guy there to oversee them, because the biggest problem with these cells is last minute they may chicken out. They may say, fuck it, I'm not doing it. So they leave one guy there to make sure nobody runs away. That guy is responsible for making sure everybody gets their weapons ready, everyone gets their gear on, At X time, this vehicle is going to come. Think U-Hauls, think vans. Those are the movements that you're going to see. They're all going to load into one van. They're going to be taken to a location, dropped off there, and the attack starts. Another van will move to another location. They'll drop them off there. The attack will start. You are looking at a 12 to 14 hour window from when the call of go comes.
Has there ever been an incident where the authorities have got wind of the go sign and intervened in the 12 to 14 hours and prevented an attack? No. That's what I figured.
I'll give you a very recent example. We had the house in London where there were 25 Al-Qaeda terrorists sitting. We had their handler's name. We had his phone number. We went to MI6, MI5. No one wanted to do the raid. I literally had to threaten them with Tommy Robinson that I'll give it to Tommy and he'll do it if you guys aren't going to move. 25 terrorists were wrapped up that day.
Oh, sorry. I thought I lost your audio there for a second. S2 or Khalid. Geez, I'm thinking I got to get S2 on stage here. I'm watching some of the monitors here because there's some stuff going on outside. Apologies for that. So S2, just because I spoke to communications and it's a specialty of yours as well. What are your basic recommendations on how communities, groups, and families should communicate or can communicate when major networks go down or the internet goes down?
It depends on the size of the community. For starters, it also depends upon the training of the people within those communities and the equipment that they have and what they're able to use. Personally, in a scenario like that, I would prefer kind of the Pony Express type communications, where if you're in an area where you have a bunch of smaller communities that outlie each other, you have one guy that has a bicycle. He can take and relay information over to the next point of contact in the next community over. That guy from there can take and communicate that information to the next guy in the next community, and so forth and so on. One of the reasons why terrorists have been so hard to detect since GWAT is because they have gone back to old school communication tactics. They do face-to-face, they do dead drops. They don't necessarily use a lot of electronic communication, so they're able to fly under the radar. We have to operate accordingly.
Well said. So that wraps up the fifth and final segment tonight. And just in quick summary, the infiltration obviously is already well underway. So the question is not if, but when these embedded cells are going to activate. And then again, 9/11 2.0 will not be a one and done. It's going to result on follow-on attacks, not just the same day in different locations, but forever after that. We will see things like the Middle East where terrorist attacks are on a very, very regular basis. And for those people who have a desire to survive and have their family survive, now is the time to develop that situational awareness. Start thinking in terms of, geez, that doesn't look right. I wonder what they're up to. And if your gut says something's not right, we are the only species on the entire planet who will ignore their gut instinct and still go into danger. At its simplest level, a cat sees a dog, the cat runs away because the cat knows the dog will, thump it if it gets a hold of it, so to speak. Whereas every single person who has survived a sudden violence incident, every last one of them, always starts the recollection by saying something didn't feel right. And they completely ignored it. My buddy Tony Blauer likes to say, you pull into a gas station, it's nighttime, you look around, maybe there's some thugs present, whatever, but it just doesn't look and feel right. His advice is always choose safety. Drive a few minutes down the road to the next gas station where it doesn't feel off, doesn't feel dangerous. So in addition to that, we're a survival and prepping company primarily, and we speak in terms of the terrorist threat, because whether you're prepping for a terrorist threat or a natural calamity like a hurricane, all of the stuff we're coaching you to do and that we do ourselves is preparation for any type of calamity. If the grid goes down because Volt Typhoon, shuts things down, Volt Typhoon being a CCP hacking group, it doesn't matter if Volt Typhoon took your electricity down, or a hurricane took your electricity down, or an ice storm, or whatever the case may be. So again, we look at things through the lens of the terrorist threat, but all of our survival prepping stuff is applicable across the board. So if you aren't prepping, start tomorrow. You should have started yesterday, figuratively speaking. But food, shelter, water, those are the three basics. Then you get into things like, self-defense with weapons, communications, etc. But if you don't have food, water, shelter, you're toast. Make sure you have those things checked off your list. All right. So now we are at one of my favorite parts of the entire podcast. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. And this is the Carnival Hero of the Day. I love Steve Inman, by the way. His narration is second to none. I did an entire show on him last Sunday. If you want to start your week with a smile on your face, go to C Heaven. So the letter C, then the word heaven. That's my name, Chris Heaven. You can see it right below my name. cheaven.substack.com, 7 p.m. every Sunday. I do a free episode of zany, funny stuff to start your week with a smile on your face, because we talk about a lot of doom and gloom stuff Monday through Friday. But I did the whole thing on Steve Inman stuff, and I did a poll for the audience, and over 50% of the poll said more Steve Inman stuff. So because of that, here's one. The only caption Steve put on this, by the way, Steve Inman commented on one of my X posts recently. He gave us the thumbs up. It was appreciated. But one word for Steve Inman: hero. 43-second video.
Welcome to Dunfermline, Scotland, where they have their fair share of soy boys as well. Yeah, you can't get away from it. This idiot trying to rob a post office. Of course, this chicken shit manhandles this woman and starts throwing her around like nothing. And booyah, he's about to get disciplined and shot to the back of the dome, doing what this soy boy's parents should have done.
I gotta add that I love it when he plays the theme song to the A-Team from the 80s.
Years ago, now society is left dealing with douchebags like this, now setting up this choke as they try to disarm this idiot of his pistola. It looks like they have just about disarmed this soy bitch. It's unfortunate that the camera cut out short, but I believe that's because they took this asswipe to the back and put his head in a vice, squeezed his head like a grapefruit like Joe Pesci did in Casino.
then he throws it a little Magnum PI at the end. I mean, you gotta love it. And sorry I didn't make that.
I like it when he does the ludicrous cam.
Oh my God, the ludicrous cam rocks. I played 50 Steve Inman videos this past Sunday on my personal podcast. It was awesome. Next one out is, or up, I should say, is the reader submitted story of the day. This is from Tim Smith. Tim is an ardent Survival Dispatch News supporter. He's a guardian. He's become a really big, important part of our community. And this is an article that he shared with our Guardian group on our private Signal channels this morning. This woman is a luxury real estate agent in Palm Beach, Florida. Today, following Zoran Mandami winning, he didn't win, he was installed. Her office has exploded with calls from wealthy New Yorkers wanting properties. It's actually happening. The wealthy are fleeing New York City in droves. I'm not going to lie. I did not think this was going to happen. I thought this guy was going to win in New York City. I thought that our market was going to pick up, but I didn't think it was going to happen like the next morning. Racing down from New York City nonstop, back-to-back calls. I had showings scheduled for listings that haven't had showings in months. It literally turned on like a light bulb, blew off like a firecracker in the post-socialist New York City political market is here on our shores in Palm Beach. Welcome. So for anybody who's surprised by that, put a 0 in the live chat.
Just leave your damn voting habits up there.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Don't New York or Florida, right? Just like don't California or Texas. But S2, we've got the conflicted question here for you.
Okay, here we go, folks. I want to see your comments in the comments about this question. And here we go. Gordon feels that people take their freedom for granted. Do you also feel in general that people take their freedom for granted, and why?
So we'll go to Jeff first because I'm pretty sure he's going to reference how stupid New Yorkers are because he does it on a nightly basis now. But go ahead.
Well, yes. And I was talking to my niece who lives in Manhattan today, and
oh my God,
she's just rolling her eyes at how stupid they are. Yes, people take their rights for granted because they've never been threatened with them being taken away in a way that they would actually notice. Their rights are taken away by drips and drabs, not all at once. It's not like someone saying you can't say that or you can't go vote. They only say you can't do that and you can't vote to conservatives. So the Dems never see it. And I think most conservatives are aware of it, but the Democrats are just brain dead. And with that, I've got to sign off before my wife divorces me.
Okay. I appreciate your time, Jeff. Thank you. Khalid. Oh, I dropped S2 by accident.
The problem you have is that if you've never had your rights tested, you will always take them for granted. And the easiest way to do that is to say, you aren't allowed to leave your house for 48 hours. And you're only allowed to eat this, and this. You start thinking about it then. The problem we have right now, and this plays right into the topic that we've been discussing. When you don't know that your rights can be taken away from you, you take them for granted. You treat them as if they were something that belonged to you and you'll always have them. You will not always have them. Someone comes and decides to invade your house. They have taken your rights away and you don't have anything. You have no way to control what's going on. I am one of those people that believes that you will only have your rights if you defend your rights. Freedom is only given to those people who stand up and defend it. If you don't get freedom by sitting at home on your lazy boy and going, oh, yeah, I'm a free guy. I can do whatever I want. I can say whatever I want. But you're not, because you're not standing up for it anywhere. And I go back to a statement that the other night after we closed the broadcast, I said it to you, Chris. There was three police officers went to a guy's house in Texas and asked him about why he had posted something against the Israelis. And the guy literally stood up for his rights. He said, this is solicitation. There's a sign right there on my lawn. What you're doing is solicitation because you don't have a warrant. I've done nothing wrong. I've broken no laws. Stay off my lawn and go get in your cars and get the hell out of here. That's standing up for your freedoms. 99% of us not say one word.
Yeah, I don't disagree. So I'll go next because S2 likes to clean up on this. And I would say that the number one reason this happens is because the vast majority of Americans have outsourced their safety and security to others. They don't take it upon themselves to ensure they're safe. Yes, there's outliers. There's always outliers in everything, right? 2 + 2 = 4. That's an absolute. I'm not speaking in absolute terms. But the vast majority of Americans have outsourced their security. I believe that is the root of the problem, because every decision you make in life is the same basic common denominator. The first thing you do is decide what you want. The second thing you do is decide what you're willing to give up to get it. So people who've had their brains turned to shit by the propaganda legacy media, and they believe the government. When the government says, listen, we have to take this civil liberty away from you to ensure the safety and security of everybody in our society. And if it saves just one life, it's worth it. Like, fuck it is. It's not fucking worth it. It's called Darwin in action. We should not be giving up our civil liberties to protect the stupidest people in society. And I don't give a shit if that sounds harsh. That is the fact of the matter. I'm a hardcore libertarian, lowercase L, not capital L. Those guys are lunatics. But either way, my opinion is people outsource their security. People are told to maintain their security. They have to give this thing up to get the security. And it just builds over time. Jeff hit it on the head when he said that people will notice, so they're not specifically saying, oh, wait a minute. Yeah. You can't read this book. You can't do this. You can't go there. No, they always tie it to something like in the name of security and safety. S2, what's your answer to the question tonight?
People take their freedoms and their rights for granted because they don't even know what they are.
Ain't that the truth?
You can tell people all day long that you have the right to do this and you have the right to do that. But you can also walk up to that same person and say, what does the First Amendment guarantee you? And as we've watched everything through media and everything over the last 5 years, particularly with COVID, we watched all of these things try to be taken away. We watched them try to take people's guns away. We watched people censored. We watched people canceled and doxxed. We watched people's houses be raided for no reason at all. The violations of people's rights just go right on down the line. There are examples of every single one of them. It's because people have chosen not to educate themselves as to what their rights actually are and how to stand up for themselves.
Yeah, well said. I mean, the whole COVID thing just blows me away at, what they tried to convince people of, which was just complete and utter bullshit. We were persecuted for it. We got strikes. We got thrown off a couple platforms because of Charlie 19. But I won't go too deep into that tonight. I just want to hit on a few things at the end. Number one, I want to thank our premier sponsor, Carnivalt, carnivalt.com. Let me see here if I can get it so you can spell it. There you go, carnivalt.com. Use the code EATMEAT, all one word, get 10% off, free shipping, all orders over $99. These guys are awesome, hardcore Americans. Everything is American. The bag's American. The O2 absorber's American. The meat is American. The beef is 100% American, grass finished, not grass fed. Grass fed means they porked them up the last few weeks on grains and they end up with the same problems they would have had otherwise. It's just bullshit. No mRNA, no antibiotics, no histamines. This is a freeze-dried product with a 25-year shelf life. Nobody else has cracked this nut because this is raw meat. So you've got 6 ounces of freeze-dried meat that has a 0.05% moisture, relative humidity / moisture level, reconstitutes in 5 to 10 minutes, and then cooks in the blink of an eye. Whatever you reconstitute it in, like a, if you use like a bouillon cube or something like that, it draws it right through the center of the meat. Everybody else cooks the meat, then they freeze dry it. It's covered up in sodium and MSG. You reconstitute it, you heat it up, which is really cooking it a second time, and it's like shoe leather. So it's why when you get these products from the other prepping companies that you know of, the pieces of meat are like this big and it tastes like complete crap. This stuff here is raw, and here's the thing. We have a couple freeze dryers. You can't freeze dry fat. It turns into this weird gel and it'll spoil whatever's in the bag with it. These guys, their sirloin is so freaking lean that they create a great product. But we thought the preppers would buy this hand over fist. That was our initial impression. And preppers have been buying this because you don't have to have a refrigerator or anything like that. But people have been buying this for the convenience. You go off grid, you're hunting, hiking, fishing, camping, overlanding, or whatever. Super convenient product to take with you and have high quality food. We know some hunters out west where they have to hike 14, 15 miles into the base camp. They don't carry water with them. They take their Sawyer minis, stuff like that, to treat the water because of weight. Ounces equals pounds. They love this because it weighs next to nothing. They haul it into the base camp. While they're hunting during the day, they might eat a nasty MRE protein bar, but when they get back to their base camp, they're cooking premium steak, chicken, and pork, and they just love to have the ability to do that. And again, because it's not reconstituted, they don't have to worry about critters thinking, oh, gee, that smells like there's steak in that cooler over there. It doesn't happen, sort of thing. So with that being said, I completely slipped up tonight. Khalid, Nest too, I forgot to mention, Cindy and I are going back to Mar-a-Lago on Tuesday. So this is going to kick off another 6 months of me saying this one time I was at Mar-a-Lago. This is not the first time we've been there. And we're very privileged to have been invited back for the big
And we'll
blue
never
bash.
hear the end of it.
You will never, absolutely, you will not hear the end of this. Is why I said I screwed up tonight. I had every intention of mentioning it no less than 10 times. So I
And then
promise.
that one time at Mar-a-Lago camp.
That's exactly. It's 100%. So, but we're going back for the big blue bash. So we'll get to see Tom Holman again. We worked with Tom Holman last year. We raised a lot of money for his Border 911 project. That's how we got our first invite there. I was telling one of my buddies today, you know, he back in Texas, and he said, "What was it like last time?" I said, "Well, the very first thing that happened is we were on the patio and they had an outdoor bar, and Roseanne Barr came up behind me and put her arm around me and looked at me, and she goes, 'I'm fucking smashed.'" And Josh is like, "No friggin' way." I'm like, "Yeah, friggin' way." Like, if I can find the text that I had with him here quickly, there you go. His response to it is, you know, that's classic. So there's Roseanne Barr with my wife and I at Mar-a-Lago the last time around. I don't know if she'll be there this time or not, but we're, just in case you didn't get the memo, we're going back to Mar-a-Lago next Tuesday on November the 11th. And no, you're not going to hear the end of it. And I just got invited to an event with Ron DeSantis on December 5th. I've always, ever since he ran against Trump, been kind of iffy on him, but there'll be some good people there, good contacts. And anybody who knows me knows I've got over 22,800 business contacts in my Rolodex, people I've worked with in some capacity or another. So I'm a whole lot taller and a whole lot better looking when I stand in my Rolodex, because I'm never the smartest guy in the room. I'm like the Forrest Gump of the business world. Anyway, beyond that, speaking of which, so I've been invited to host a late night TV show that'll be shot in Nashville with a live audience. It'll kind of be like the old Johnny Carson Tonight Show was years ago. And a company called Liberty Forge Productions is flying me in to be part of the creative team and also to host the show. We're going to be filming episodes in a few weeks here in Nashville. Again, incredibly blessed to have all of these things fall into my life. Sometimes I wonder why, but here I am nonetheless. And I guess the only other thing that I want to touch on is if y'all could head over to survivaldispatch.news if you haven't been there before. That's our Substack. If you could sign up, we would greatly appreciate it. The paying membership's only $7.99 a month or $74.99 a year. Gets you 2.5 months for free. I'm telling you right now, the community that we have on our private Signal chats is more than worth it. I'm not even going to mention all the other extras. You get a lot of extras beyond that. But the exchange of information, you've got professionals in there like S2 and Khalid sharing stuff you will not find anywhere else. You have other professionals, law enforcement professionals, intelligence professionals sharing information inside of our Signal groups. This survival prepping channel that I carved off a couple weeks ago has grown a life of its own. I am absolutely just super happy with how that's gone. And I do have a 5th Signal channel we'll be announcing imminently. So just hold on for that. It's coming soon. But I think I covered all the bases. We'll be back tomorrow night at the usual time, 7 p.m. Eastern, with the next episode in our long war series, Education in the New Era, teaching without institutions. But between now and then, if you could like, share, comment, subscribe, I would appreciate it very much. God bless America.
God bless America.
And enjoy the closing video.